The biggest issue right now that we're having in melanoma is we've been very successful at developing frontline agents for our patients where they didn't exist before. And that's highlighted by over the last decade, nearly a dozen agents and or regimens have been approved to treat that patient population. One of the key unmet needs is actually identifying treatments that are effective in the patient population that have received immune checkpoint inhibitor therapy and then is in need of another therapy. So this trial was looking at a novel concept and combination of an HDAC inhibitor called entinostat plus pembrolizumab, which is a PD-1 inhibitor. The rationale for the study is that entinostat and other HDAC inhibitors in its class can modulate both tumor expression of certain genes as well as affect the tumor microenvironment and specifically negatively impact regulatory cells that may be dampening down the immune response. So essentially blocking a blocker. And the idea is in doing that, maybe you open up that tumor to be more responsive again to anti-PD-1 antibody therapy. The patient population that we treated were all had received PD-1 inhibitors previously. About 3/4 had received an anti-CTLA-4 antibody. Usually I think it was ipilimumab, almost always, if not always. And about a third of patients, or a little more than a third of patients, had received a combination of ipilimumab and nivolumab as their checkpoint inhibitor, or at least their first checkpoint inhibitor therapy. In addition, about 20 to 25% of the patients enrolled into this 53-patient cohort had BRAF mutated melanoma, and all of those patients had received a BRAF or BRAF MEK inhibitor combination prior to enrollment. We didn't separate the efficacy between those who'd been on the BRAF mutated patients and those who weren't BRAF mutated. But we did identify and report a response rate of 19%, so there were 10 responders out of 53 patients. I think most importantly, 10 patients maintained either a response or stable disease that lasted longer than a year. So it seems that there's something important happening for those patients where they're having a prolonged durable benefit from an agent that's given after the previous PD-1 inhibitor therapy was no longer effective. We saw benefit in patients who had just come off of PD-1 inhibitor therapy, which is important because that really does prove the concept that these patients were refractory and then had benefit.